Om Vedanta Siddhanta Niruktiresha Brahmaiva Jivaham Sakalam Jagadcha Akanda Rupa Stitir Eva Moksho Brahmadvitiye Shrutayaha Pramanam. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. It is the final and apt conclusion of the Vedanta that all is Brahman, time, space, living beings, and the world. Living in constant recognition of this fact is what is called enlightenment. Brahman is pure and perfect, and one without a second. And the revealed scriptures are the sure and certain proof of this fact. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Drishyam Pratitam Pravilapayan San Matram Anandaganam Vibhavayam Samahita San Bahir Antaram Va Kalam Nayitaha Sati Karma Bande. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. Brahman, the reality, is an indeterminable mass of pure conscious awareness. Therefore, taking what is outside and what is inside, render them both into one indivisible state. Then meditate upon that state, pass your time contentedly, and be free. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Sahana, Om Sahana Vavatu, Sahanau Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karva Vahai, Tejasvi Navaditamastu, Ma Vidvisho Vahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May Brahman protect us, may Brahman sustain us, may Brahman illumine our thinking consciousness. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the teachings, and may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. This is the second class of our Dharma visit here in San Francisco. As you remember yesterday, we went through the meaning of fire, and we saw how it had we saw how it was a fire of suffering first, and that tend to compel people up and out of Maya. And then we saw how it turned to a fire of aspiration. That is, beings get their thoughts inspired and they want to get out of suffering. Buddha said suffering is the first noble truth, you see. So then the second noble truth is there's a cause for it. And third is there's a way out of it. So we're not going to sit around and just forbear unnecessary suffering. There's a good distinction to make there. There's things that you do have to suffer here, say this body, and names. People calling you names. Any name from your God-given name to names that are thrown at you by people who don't appreciate you. And also cause and effect is here upon us all the time. Do an action, there's a reaction that comes back to you. That doesn't exist just in physics, like two balls hitting each other, or planets colliding in space and study what happens. But there's cause and effect going on in the mind prior to that, which brings about karmas which have less to do with mechanics and physics and all that, and more to do with actions and thoughts. One famous scientist in the 1880s said, when we study the universe, it seemed to us earlier to look like a machine, but now it seems to us to look more like a thought the more we study it. The universe begins to look like a manifestation of your mind, your thought process. You can change the world positively every day just by your attitude, or reverse, by your negative attitude. Depends on where your mind is. So the mind is a crucial thing. Holy Mother said the mind is very important in this stage of the play, the play of consciousness, because you have to take that mind with you to Brahman. That's how you proceed inward with the mind. So we don't want to leave the mind just on an external level or a superficial level. That's why we just chanted, take what is outside and what is inside and render them into one state. So that which is gross, that which is subtle, that which is the world, and that which is the subtle state within, the worlds or kingdoms of heaven within you, try and render those into one state and meditate on them. Then pass your time contentedly and be free. You must be the seer of that. Om Drishyam. Drishyam means to see, or to be the seer. So you must be the witness of all process, the witness of all phenomena. Because if you identify with the phenomena, then it's like identifying with the surface of the ocean. So you get tossed by the waves. But if you identify with the depths of the ocean, then there's peace, peace, peace. So you must be a good diver. After all, doesn't a diver take one deep breath, hold it, and dive into the ocean, come up with the pearls a couple minutes later, and let that breath out, take a new one? Well, we're doing that every day in our waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. We're taking in 224,000 breaths a day, and that goes about half at night when you go into a quiet state, and almost goes away completely in deep sleep. You don't breathe for minutes at a time sometimes, and strangely enough, your brain cells don't die either, or anything happens to you that's adverse. So you're going to a suspended state. We're closer to consciousness, so you don't need lungs. Like at the time of passing from your body, you don't need lungs anymore, so you cast them off. So name and form and cause and effect are here. That's why the kind of suffering that is necessary can't be avoided. And time and space are also, events happening in time and in space also are not always under our control, so we have to suffer and forbear those. But there's lots of unnecessary suffering we don't have to put up with, and much of that is because of our own mind. We lack control of our mind and senses. So to discipline the mind and the senses is called yoga. I mean, yoga really happens at three levels. There's yoga as union. I and my Father are one. That's true yoga. And then there's yoga as physical exercises. People are into that nowadays, just the hatha level of yoga. It's just getting into a bunch of asanas, twisting the body into pretzel shapes, thinking maybe that will get them enlightened, or maybe just doing it for health reasons. But there's yoga as practice too. Yoga as practice is called sadhana. So those three levels of yoga are there. The real thing, the practice to attain the real thing, and then that which is only a passing phase. So that mind that we have right now is going to have to avail itself of practice, because how many of us can so boldly state, I and my Father are one, with such assurance based on realization, because they had that experience inside of them. They saw themselves to be no different than God. Vivekananda was like that. He's one of those knowers of Brahman. And he came here and said, mankind is just God walking around on two legs. And so he wanted us to realize the fact that that eternal soul is within us. But what stands in the way is Maya. And so we have to get very good at dissolving name and form, and time and space, and karma, cause and effect. We have to dissolve those. We do it in deep sleep at night, but we don't do it at a very deep level. We just do it temporarily, and we're free of it. And then we wake up again, and all this karma comes dancing back. Name and form comes dancing back. Time and space comes dancing back, like scum green scum over a lake. You see, you push it away and it comes dancing back. As long as you keep it away, you can see yourself. It means you can see your Atman. But as soon as that Maya comes and covers everything, then you get a distorted view or a covered view. That's called Avarana Shakti, the covering power of Maya, and Vikshepa Shakti, the distorting power of Maya. The covering takes away the reality completely, and people don't even have a clue that there's anything higher than just physical things, physics. And the distorting power makes something real look unreal, and something unreal look real. It causes one thing to look other than what it really is. Like I was trying to explain last night, even at the prasad dinner we had after our Durga Puja, that this idea of production and non-production, or origination and non-origination. If you see a thing produced, or if you produce a thing, then you've taken it from its unproduced state, right? So that means its nature must have been unproduced. So production must be a secondary thing. It's not an initial thing. The foundation for everything is unproduced, formless. And it's the same with your mind and consciousness. When it goes into deep meditation, it goes back to the original source, and it sees through all the production of things, what's called creation. So we must look at things as they are. The yogi looks at things as they truly are, not how they seem to be. So he has to see through things, and science is so far beginning to see through the appearance of physical things. And they're not really trees and planets and objects and so forth. They're vibrating particles. So there's one step towards a deeper secret, which the seers of India and other luminaries of the religions have known for millennia. Lots of beings come into the body with this knowledge that the world is unreal. That's why it's so easy for them to renounce it. They just look at it and laugh. What a play, what a farce. But the only thing they can't laugh as is this necessary suffering they're going to have to undergo when they enter the body. Name, form, space, time, cause and effect. So that's nama, rupa, kala, desha, kala, and nimitta. That's the definition that Swami Vivekananda came and gave us to the word Maya. Because other people were thinking Maya is just outright illusion, if you like, the son of a barren woman. So there are some things that are just outright fictitious and don't make any sense at all. And so those are the horned hair kind of idea. Although I heard there was such a thing as a hair with horns. So Maya makes the impossible possible sometimes. Or silver in the mother of pearl, so like a shell. And we have one of those in Hawaii. It's diamonds in Diamond Head. See, the sailors first came to Oahu and they saw Diamond Head, that extinct crater there. And it was shining, and they thought, gold, we finally found gold way out in the middle of the ocean, or silver. And so they ran up to Diamond Head and looked, and it was just obsidian glistening in the sun, see. So they superimposed something that they really desired very much over something that was just the real way it was. See? And that's just on a physical level. So we're starting, due to falling under the influence of Maya, we're starting to project all sorts of things over reality. Called false superimposition in Vedanta, or Vivarta, or Adhyasa. There's different names, and we don't have any names for that in English. So if we don't have a word for it, then we don't know it exists, you see. But if you have words for it, and people have pondered it and realized it and saw it and retreated from it and got the experience of the unchanging reality, because Maya is basically change, movement, temporality, transformation, pick your words. The reality does not change. It's not temporal, it's eternal. It does not transform. It's aparinama, changeless. It stays the same, and that's its nature. So you can't change its nature. So when you take a world and pull it out of Brahman, then you've made an error. See? In the Indian way of thinking, the whole thing is an error, called Mula Vidya, from the very beginning. Life is an error. It's a disequilibrium of the gunas. The gunas were once in balance. You see, everything was fine. The minute the creative urge happened or the demiurge happened, everything, there goes the neighborhood, It's vibration time. See? And we know there are good vibrations and bad vibrations and mixed vibrations, and they all live together in the little old house that Jack built, you see, all connected with one another. Now, if you come into life and mind and body knowing that these things are connected, then you're fine, really. You can be either a sage or a warrior, they say. But you turn animalistic and materialistic and hedonistic and bound. You become a bond slave to nature when you don't remember the connections when you enter into the body. When Maya completely overflows, you see, and obscures, the obscuring power of Rana Shakti. And then it begins to distort things that you thought were real and makes them look unreal, and then it takes things that are unreal and makes them look real. See? Pretty soon you're saying, oh, this world is real. And Ramakrishna says, if you live enough lifetimes thinking this world is real, then the world becomes real for you. And you just go on having lifetimes of delusion like that. But the seers, the yogis, the saints, the sages, the rishis, they never fall into that misconception. They always keep clear, thine eye be single kind of clarity. They always keep that first and foremost. They look out. You see, we said, take what is out and what is in and render them into one state, right? So they're always inward. So when they look out from their Atman, from their true nature, and they're considering taking a birth for usually the good of mankind, for some higher purpose, not for pleasure or for karma or for desire or things like that, but for some higher purpose, then they have to draw a sharp breath and say, well, I'm going to have to avail myself of Maya. Sri Ramakrishna said, when a fisherman casts a net, then the fish are caught inside of it. And there's one type of fish that grabs the net in its teeth and sinks itself into the mud, and it thinks it's safe there. But soon the fisherman will haul up that net and it'll pull itself right out of the mud, you see. So there are some people that just bury themselves in Maya, wrap themselves around it like a cocoon, you see. And they think they're safe and warm and comfortable there, but death is coming along, and so is birth again, and so is growth, and so is disease, and so is, I put it twice there, birth, growth, disease. Old age should be there instead of disease. Birth, growth, disease, old age, decay, and death come along in cycles. So might as well call Maya cycles. Put another name up there. Change, movement, temporality, transformation. Might as well put cyclic existence there as Maya. And live enough lifetimes like that, you believe cycles are real. And then you you believe in evolution. See? And maybe the evolution isn't even based on many lifetimes. It has to be based only on one lifetime. Oh, the universe will go on forever, but I just begin and end in a little tiny part of it, you see. So I've relegated myself less than matter. Matter goes on forever. Hundreds and thousands of years, but I only live 60 or 70 or 80 years. Then I'm less than matter. See, the human being is all of a sudden relegated to a bond slave to nature. So the seers and the saints, seers means those who see, drishyam, they aren't going to accept that. See, they're going to come here and not only live the life of realization, but they're going to try and convince you, others, to wake up and live a life of realization. Open that single eye that Christ talked about, and that Krishna talked about, and that Taoism talked about, and that Confucianism talked about. That the Essene Christians talked about. 6 or 7 different religions talk about that. Religions talk about that single eye, not just Hinduism. Krishna called it the Jnana Chakshu, the eye of wisdom. You must open your eye of wisdom, Arjuna, to see through this battlefield, you see, of the world. So I'm on and on a little bit about the ever-changing Maya today, because that's what this first verse in the 4th chapter was like. And we flowed past it yesterday. We read 7 slokas right in a row. It's a beautiful set. I'll read them again. May that divine being who though himself colorless, gives rise to various colors in different ways, with the help of his own power, for his own inscrutable purpose, and who dissolves the whole world inside of himself, like this. In the end, may he endow us with good thoughts. That itself is fire, that is sun, that is air, that is moon, that is also the starry firmament, that is Brahman, that is the waters, that is Prajapati, the teacher of all beings. Thou art the woman, thou art the man, thou art the youth and the maiden too. Thou art the old man who totters along, leaning on his staff. Thou art born with faces turned in all directions. Thou art the dark blue butterfly and the green parrot with red eyes. Thou art the thundercloud, the seasons, the oceans. Thou art without beginning and beyond all time and space. Thou art that one from whom all worlds are born. Those were the first 4 slokas we read. Then we read about the 5th sloka we took apart, and there's a single female of red, white, and black colors. That's Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva, right? Who is unoriginated, that is, no beginning to her, and who produces numerous offsprings, resembling herself. By her side lies one male, out of attachment for her, while another male, also unoriginated, forsakes her after enjoying her. Remember that sloka? There's one unborn female, just Prakriti, nature, the bound soul lying next to her who can't give her up, and then the free soul who gave her up and went beyond form, name, time, space, causality, went beyond those things. All 3 of the same nature existing in the same locus, you see, consciousness. Then the famous story from the Upanishads, the next 2 slokas. 2 birds of beautiful plumage who are inseparable friends reside on the self-same tree. That's that bound soul and that free soul, and the tree would be that one unborn female. One eats the fruits of the tree with relish, while the other looks on without eating. Sitting on that same tree, the individual soul gets entangled and feels miserable, being deluded on account of his forgetting his divine nature. When he sees the other, the Lord of all, in the upper branch, whom all devotees worship, realizes that all greatness is his, then he is relieved of his misery. In other words, he forsakes his lower branches and he flies up to stay with that bird on the upper branch in the sun, not eating, not experiencing anything. Because below he ate sour fruits and he ate sweet fruits and he got sick and he got healthy. He went through all the dualities of Maya. Finally got tired of it. I will join my friend, my eternal friend, and just sit in the sun, actionless, motionless, permanent, stable, non-transforming, without change. Because that's my true nature, you see. All this change came out of that. So I'm going to have to bring it back into me. If it all came out from Brahman, then I'm going to have to take it back in, you see. The whole matter is, how long are you going to take to do that? You do it every night in sleep. So every 24 hours you produce the universe, sustain it, and then destroy it at night when you go into deep sleep. And hundreds and thousands of beings are doing that along with you, see. So Maya has a great power, has a great hold over people, great allurement. But what about that unborn, unoriginated male who forsakes nature after having enjoyed it? Transcends nature, which is Maya, which is name, form, space, time, and cause and effect. Been there, done that. Goes beyond both name and form. This thirst for life forever quench. It drags from birth to death, and death to birth to soul. They conquer all who conquer self, Atman. Know that and never yield. So you have to become a lion of Vedanta. See? The Zen Buddhists have ox taming. See? 10 stages of ox taming. And we Vedantists have lion taming. See? We have to tame our Atman. We have to make it ours. There's a chart on that, brand new, which I'll show soon. So, having read those 7 slokas again, just a mere 7 slokas out of chapter 4, you can automatically say, the Upanishads are very profound. See, what did they use there? They used truth, they used indicators, like symbols and metaphors, and they used poetry. You are the green parrot with red eyes. See, you are the bright blue butterfly. So they're using everything possible in these scriptures to try and attract you away from Maya and to attract you back to your true nature. Sit in the top of that tree. Top of that tree would be the Word. You see, everything spills out of the Word. So that's why I put up this chart. My new book is almost out. It should be out within a month. It's called Dissolving the Mind Stream. So this chart, I'm just showing it to you because here in the first sloka, may that divine being, Brahman, the ocean there, who though is colorless, gives itself rise to different colors in different ways with the help of its own power, called Maya, for his own inscrutable purpose, that is, no one knows why, and who dissolves the whole world back into himself. See? May that great being endow us with good thoughts. So there's the ocean of Brahman, and if you're talking about evolution, spiritually speaking, then you have to come out to the word, Shabda Brahman. See, in the beginning was the word, Christ said. And from the word, the cosmic mind burgeons, with all of these things in it. The power of time, space, cause and effect, name and form, they're all there in the cosmic mind. They appear very early on. This universe is the furthest out, you see, when they solidify. But here they're thoughts in the mind, you see. Time, space, all those things are concepts. Everything is conceptual. That's the way the illumined souls come to think of it, come to know it, that it's all in the mind first. All the great schools in India are called mind-only schools. They treat the mind first because all diseases are in the mind. If you got rid of them in the mind, then you wouldn't have them in the body, which is why the yogis are so healthy all the time. See? They're not brooding, they're not fearing of getting cancer, they're not troubled when something happens to the body. Their mind's on Brahman all the time, the eternal, because they're eternal, it's eternal, nature's eternal, and Maya's eternal. Where's the problem here? Everything is. Sarvosmi, everything is. There's nothing that's not. Do you walk around saying, I'm not, I'm not? Don't you walk around saying, I am, I am? So everyone affirms all the time with every breath. In fact, your breath is a way of affirming. If you become aware that breath is, and just watch your breath marching in and out, you must say, marvelous, marvelous, I breathe, see? And if I don't breathe, and I go to Hawaii and my name is Captain Cook, then they're going to call me a haole. See? In Hawaii, you're called a haole if you're white, because the first whites they saw didn't breathe. They're all wrapped up with the uniforms and military and business suits later, you see, preacher's garb, you see, all bound up, not breathing. So look at the howlies, you see. So the breath is a sign of life. It's a sign of living, you see. Man does not live by bread alone. He means breath. It doesn't mean God. Man doesn't live by God. Man is God. So don't relegate God to that. Go back to the cause of things. See, God cannot be a cause for anything. It's causeless. Didn't we already say that? It's beyond cause and effect. So Maya kicks in somewhere around here, you see, and it starts producing name and form. Time starts to flow. Space starts to expand. Worlds start to be created. All out of the great mind. Mahat. The great mind. Mahat. So out of that, then everything flows. There's the individual mind with all its elements. There's the fivefold life force, that prana we were just talking about. Things start to breathe, start to expand, start to contract. Takes on subtle elements like odor, flavor, visibility, tangibility, and audibility. And then, before you know it, the 10 senses break into manifestation, and then the 5 elements. See? So all comes spilling out. This is not the dissolution of the mind stream, this is the manifestation of the mind stream. And it ends right about there with solid earth, granite. In other words, the densest vibration you can think of. Everything is weighty, is heavy. Maya is in full bloom, you see, producing worlds of name and form as if they were real. The covering power has been pulled over the eyes. The wool has been pulled over the eyes, and everyone's walking around as individual bodies thinking, I'm great, I'm great. But we're all idiots. Who said that? Vivekananda, he came here and said, oh, we all walk around saying, we're great, but we're really idiots, that's what we are. Because we've bought into Maya's game. It's only the realized souls who see through it, who are not idiots. And they're the best workers, they're the best meditators, they're the most intelligent beings. They're aware of that Divine Mother power whom we were worshipping last night, in the image. Not as the image, that would be idol worship. In the image. What the image represents. The intelligence of the most intelligent ones. Chetanas Chetananam. The eternal among non-eternal things. Nityo Nityanam. So that Shakti is present in all 7 of these verses, and so is that Maya. So that's the dynamic side of Brahman. Fire has its power to burn, water has its wetness, snow has its whiteness. Brahman, the static reality, also has its Maya. Poison exists in the snake, but the snake doesn't suffer. See? Just like that, all of this exists inside of Brahman, but Brahman suffers not. Remains transcendent, ever pure, never bound, ever free. So then, if you like freedom, who are you going to meditate on? Who's your daddy? The Almighty Father is your daddy. Brahman, you see. And if you need help getting back to him, take the help of the Divine Mother, because this is her realms, you see. Lokas, akashas. Again, we have no worlds for them. Kingdom of Heaven Within is about the closest we can get, or my Father's mansion has many chambers. You know, little cryptic sayings here and there in some of the scriptures that are more recent. The Bible's very recent. Quran, very recent. And these scriptures are very, very ancient. So those seers who understood that that Brahman dissolves the whole world back into itself by the power of its Shakti, and that's how these cycles go forth. And this might as well be one in-breath. And this might as well be the held breath. And this might as well be the out-breath. This might as well be one day of Lord Brahma, one afternoon of Lord Brahma, and one night of Lord Brahma. Or this might as well be one blink of the eye in the lifetime of Lord Brahma, who exists right here as the cosmic mind. Is time real? Is time real to you last night in deep sleep? Did you sleep 2 hours in deep sleep, or did you sleep 8 hours in deep sleep? Does it matter? You didn't know anything. You were formless. Where did you go? It's akin to saying, who am I? That's why they want you to ask who. As if you ask what, you're talking about space. And if you ask why, you're talking about cause and effect. And if you ask when, you're asking about time. And you ask about where, and you're talking about space. So why don't you ask who? The 4 W's don't work. They're all in Maya, but who begins to take you up and out of Maya. Who am I? Make like an owl. So when you ask who am I, you find out I'm not the 5 elements, I'm not the 10 senses, because we have 10 in our tradition, 5 active and 5 cognitive. And you're not the 5 subtle elements, and nor the 5 pranas, not the fourfold mind, and not the mahat. When I get to Om, then I'm finding out more closely who I am, you see. I'm the primal vibration, if I'm a vibration at all. So this beautiful chant here pretty much summates it. The classic and comprehensive meditation in both yoga and Vedanta dissolves the elements into the senses into the subtle elements into the prana into the mind into the great mind, and the great mind into Om. Find Om in yourself. That's how great the self is. So if you find Om in the self, then you can say, I'm not an idiot. I'm great. See, I'm the great mind. I'm the great primeval sound. I'm the unstruck sound. Then dissolve that self into the great self, Brahman, Atman, from Om to Atman into the great self, the ocean of consciousness, you see, whose waves are potential, kinetic and potential, bottled and unbottled, you see, cycling and uncycling, transformation and non-transformation, temporal and permanent, movement and non-movement, static and dynamic. Make the distinction. Not that hard to do. But once you make the distinction, then pronounce who you are. I am the static, I am the immovable, I am the permanent, I am the stable, I am consciousness, not matter. Because you'd be surprised how many people are mixing those together. But oil and water don't mix if you do the experiment. They separate within about 45 seconds. So that's the appearance of things, that they happen to mix for 45 seconds, and if you're not a very good observer, they say, oh, I see, matter and spirit mix. They're the same thing. Oh, they're of 2 different natures. One's sentient and one's insentient. Would you want to be the insentient? People give themselves to death. Would you want to be death? Would you want to be old age, decay, disease? Those are transformations, but the self never goes through them. See, transformationless, aparinama, another word, you see, beautiful word for it. That's of a spiritual science, not just of a physical science. Have we found, has science found anything that's unchanging? Their whole science is built on change. People's lives are built on change who believe in science. But isn't that shifting sands? Didn't Christ come to try and tell you? Does it have to be a fight between faith and science? Or it can just be that faith doesn't have to be limited to Christianity, see? Or to Hinduism, or to Sufism, or Islam, or anything. See? Could it be that there's one universal being out of which all of this comes and into which all of it goes again, and can't we just call it expression and dissolution? Isn't the ocean telling us every day, I have waves, and then they fall back into me. Sometimes I go waveless, you see. Even the ocean is just sitting there telling you, showing you the nature of the universe and showing you the nature of the self. All in one 24-hour period. If you sat there and watched the ocean like the Advaita did, and you'd see that. Oh, I see what it's telling me. Study the sun. See what the sun is telling you. Study fire. You see what the meaning of fire is. See, it goes deep. It goes way deep. See, deep thinking. Alochana. Alochana starts it off, and then when you get alochana, deep thinking, then chitpati, the light of consciousness comes forward, and you see yourself. So, put this up to show you. Not only is it the main chart of this new book that's coming out, In that book, I tell you, I lead you through this as a meditation, how to dissolve the universe back inside yourself using this little template, you see. In other words, you're supposed to go practice this. What a novel idea. Oh, you mean I had to practice? I thought I could just hear it and that was it. No, I have to go sit and dissolve everything back inside of me. And if I start dissolving and fire or water doesn't dissolve very well, then I want to find out why. Water, I'm just afraid of that. Oh, I see. In my last lifetime I drowned. See, so I have a problem with water. So I have a problem at a very surface level of my consciousness that I never knew about until I started practicing the dissolve the mind stream meditation, you see. I started putting my mind on things that were obscure, subtle, unseen, underlying, foundational, substratum, cause and effect. The cause of different effects. I'm not just happy to sit around and say, I'm suffering, I'm suffering. I want to find the cause of that. First noble truth, there is suffering. Okay, get over it. Second noble truth is there's a cause for it. Third is finding the way out. And the fourth is the way to do it. See, the Eightfold Path is the way Buddha laid out. Wants you to start with right perspective. Get right perspective first and everything starts to clarify right away, you see. But if it's wrong perspective, obscuration power, distortion power, how can you proceed under that auspice? How can you go anywhere? Your meditations won't be fruitful, your spiritual life won't grow. So go back and check your perspective, you see. Check the basics that I'm carrying along on the journey. Are those really in place? Do I have Bhranti Darshana? Gat Viveka would be a good, would probably be a good bumper sticker. Gat Viveka. Do you have the power to discriminate between the real and the unreal? Because if you do, then Bhranti Darshana, deluded thinking, will go away. You won't be holding these untenable, unplausible assumptions that materialists are trying to foist upon you as the absolute truth. Because they don't have any word for reality. Only relativity. That's what they're preoccupied with. They're preoccupied with change. So if they're preoccupied with change, as far as we're concerned, they're preoccupied with the queen of all four-letter words. Maya. Or call it samsara. Buddha liked that word, you see. I mean, he didn't like the word. He liked that word for a description for what's ailing you. What's plaguing you. Name, form, time, space, and causation. Movement, change, temporality, transformation. Birth, growth, disease, old age, decay, and death. Creation, preservation, and destruction. Evolution. Those are plaguing you. You have some strange obsession with them. But you don't know what it is to be free yet, you see. There's two kinds of freedom. The freedom that goes entirely formless and never comes back to any of this again, just merges like a hailstone into that ocean and melts there. And then the freedom that comes back again into all of this as a master, as a past master. And those are the great beings we admire. See? Why does science never say anything about Christ or Buddha? Because they secretly admired them. It's just not their realm. Physics is not the spiritual realm. If you don't know anything about spirituality, then you probably shouldn't talk about it. But if you want to know about it, you should go to a seer, or a rishi, or a knower of truth, or a meditator, or a practitioner at least. See? Sri Ramakrishna used to say, if I have a court case, I better go to a lawyer. If I have an illness, I better go to a doctor. But if I want to know about truth, I shouldn't go to a seer? What's that about, see? Not only should I go to a seer, but I'm going to have to go to a seer and bow down. I'm going to have to serve. I'm going to have to get humble. And I'm going to have to ask the eternal question, who am I? Why is there suffering? That is Get them in a good buttered up condition and then ask your question. You want to know, then go to a seer, because a seer is supposed to have known. A seer wouldn't have the name seer if he hadn't seen. You see? Put the two together, you see. The seer has seen. And as far as all seers go, there's the seeress, the Divine Mother herself, who is the Divine Eye. It operates under her auspice. The farther souls get away from her, the more they begin to believe in the mind stream, you see. They get down into the grosser vibration of things. So that's what the first sloka of chapter 4 is saying. Dissolves the whole world back into himself. Now, if you want to see this in another form, which is one of the first charts that I ever created, then look on your right, and you'll see there the 24 cosmic principles of Samkhya philosophy, which is pretty much what's listed here. This is for the benefit of you being able to see how it gets projected and how it gets dissolved. Remember, it does that every 24 hours. As far as you're concerned, you do that too. But it also does that every 4,320,000,000 years, if you're along for the ride. If you want to take the slow boat to China, or to India in this case, then you're going to be doing a very long meditation. See, you're going to be dragged from birth to death and death to birth, again and again. But if you want to put it in just a nice, clean set, there it is, the famous 24 cosmic principles called Samkhya philosophy, who every religion since then has built their foundation on. Everyone has borrowed from this system. This was Lord Copula's homework for us, when he said, what does the physical universe and the mental universe consist of? And there it all is. First, it has 2 eternal principles, which is a problem later for thinkers, when there should only be 1 eternal principle. But basically the idea is that Purusha, the sentient self, and nature, or Prakriti, insentient nature, those 2 things are kind of the hub of it all. And you see there the definition. This Purusha is the conscious spiritual entity. Call it Ishvara, call it Trinity if you want, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, that kind of thing. There's this conscious spiritual entity that's at the foundation of everything. It's sentient. Nature isn't. Nature moves because of it. It doesn't move because of nature. Unless it falls bondslave to nature. Then it moves around like a puppet, like a fool, like an idiot. Now, Prakriti's definition is unconscious material energy, intangible matter. So they're not even going to give you the physical side of it. They're not willing just to give you the physical side. They're going to call it intangible matter. See the nice distinction there? In other words, right away they're telling you everything is unproduced. It comes out of formlessness. If you have to take the time to explain this with verbiage and philosophy and so forth, but you can actually put it in 2 words. Intangible matter. Isn't that beautiful? I mean, think about those 2 words. Do we believe in the West in anything intangible? It has to be tactile, doesn't it? It's 5 sense oriented or nothing. So, is that a contradiction in terms? Intangible matter? That's what most people would think. See, is there things that you can't actually see, taste, touch, hear, and smell? There's even the atomic particle. You can see it now with an electron microscope. So you have to say, that's part of my sensual experience too. So, does a thing exist? It has a word for it, then it must exist. That's what I've been saying lately about the void. I should say, avoid the void. Because if you say void, then you're saying, I named it. And if you named it, then you must have seen it. And if you've seen it, you must have come back from it. Get my gist? Get my drift? You were the witness of the void. For all intents and purposes, it might as well have been death. that you witnessed. And then your rebirth. So you were the one that witnessed that because you had words for it, birth and death. And guess what? There's a third word, reincarnation. If you have words for them, then they must exist. They exist as concepts at least, and didn't we say that concepts are really where everything came from? Everything comes as an idea from the mind. Thought is father to the deed. So you have thought first, and then deed comes later. And in order to do deeds, you have to be in action. You have to be in matter. You have to have space. You have to have time. Space needs to expand, solidify. Time needs to kick in, and then you can start doing actions, you see. That's why there is no space in time in Brahman. It's inactive. It doesn't move. So, intangible matter, what a wonderful combination of words. In other words, all of these things were unproduced in the beginning. Rugs, doors, human bodies, a planet right now, a star floating in space that takes 11 centuries to get around in a jet. 11 centuries to go around. A star. That's how big it is. Imagine how small our Earth would be next to a planet, a star like that. A sun. So, intangible matter, that everything has come out of a formless nature, that's its nature. And then it appeared as form, secondly. See? It can't produce something out of nothing, so it had to come from somewhere. So it came from formlessness. Now you can apply that truth, that axiom, to matter. You can prakriti, and you can also apply it to yourself. I wasn't created out of dust. Sorry, I am. So the soul is. You can't create a soul. You can't even project a soul. So none of that applies to your Atman. That is an eternal verity. That is you. Pure, eternal, unchanging, indivisible, timeless, spaceless, deathless, causeless. That's you. You know that's you. Because that's the only thing that makes sense when you hear it and when you think about it. I am makes sense, you see. That's why it's one of the greatest sayings of all time. I am. It says it right here in these first 7 slokas. So, intangible matter under the heading of nature. So nature is not just manifest, it's also unmanifest. Add that huge piece of information into our Western thinking. And then you have connections. Then you have connections to make. Other than that, the connections, you're not making connections. You're satisfied with what you see, taste, touch, hear, and smell. That's it. No connections. In other words, you're not connecting taste to water. You're not connecting smell to earth. You're not connecting fire to sight. You're not connecting touch to feeling, you see, to air. And you're not connecting ether to hearing, see. Those connections aren't there. So that's what you start with first in yoga, meditating on those connections. You might as well, if you were to see Patanjali looking at you, say, oh, I have to start way back here with you? You forgot your connections between your senses and the elements? This is going to be laborious. You're going to see these seers that come out of pure conscious awareness looking at us. We're walking around with our egos saying, we're so great, we're so great. We discovered the secret for the physical universe. It's vibrating particles. Well, we saw that a long time ago. You haven't made the connection from the vibrating particle to the pranic particle, right here. And you haven't made the connection from the pranic particle to the mental particle, the intelligent particle. And then you haven't made that connection to the word, where all vibration stops. Vibration stops? I don't understand that. Well, it's not only the scientist that doesn't understand that. Many people don't understand that. And as a result, they never stop. They never stop. They're running their wheels all the time. Even at night, it's called dreaming. A person who dreams less is more peaceful. A person who dreams too much is called a nervous wreck. If you dream too much, it takes up your time at night for deep sleep. And deep sleep is where you get all of your healing. That is, unless you can be a yogi and understand the peace that passes all understanding. Then you can have peace in your waking state, peace in your dreams, peace in your deep sleep state. That's called a master of Om. A, waking, U, dreaming, M, deep sleep. You've mastered the 3 states of your consciousness. That's what that word pretty much means. See? And so you can dissolve it all back in anytime you want, even in the midday sun. You can look at it and say, I'm dissolving all of this goodbye, and you just dissolve it all back into yourself. See? Pretty soon you've done that so much you're walking around as an almost dissolved being, like Ramakrishna, almost not even there. Couldn't button a shirt, couldn't shut a door. See, nothing was closed to him. It was all like open sunlight, the light of conscious awareness. He was tending to go into samadhi all the time. He could hardly keep himself back from it. We were sitting in meditation, trying so hard to have samadhi, you see. He couldn't even keep himself back from it. He was going there all the time naturally. Open, you see, gone. Look at a person like that and we tend to think, commit him. But he was committed. He was committed to the only important thing, the most important thing in existence, Brahman, the Almighty Father, Allah, Buddha nature. That's what he was committed to. He was fully realized in it. Past master, not just a master. An avatar, they called him. So these 2 principles, right away, you see, get studied. Purusha Prakriti. They're the most ancient names we have for the soul and nature. And later on, you have Brahman and Atman and Maya and so forth, coming forth as other 2 pairs of 2. So, here's what I was saying earlier. Prakriti consists of the 3 gunas in equilibrium. See, and when they break out of equilibrium, it turns into manifested Prakriti. But it's still unmanifested Prakriti, it's still formless. And then all of a sudden, these 3 qualities come, called slothfulness, restlessness, and balance. And they kick in, and everything starts to get off its axis, see. That equilibrium that you experienced in deep sleep gets interrupted. See? And now there's tremendous activity going on. See? Hopefully under the auspice of the Mahashakti for you, not under the auspice of Maya. Because then you can stand back and appreciate this tremendous dynamism she has. See? You're in awe and you're in wonder about the manifestation of Prakriti. See? But you're not ever overwhelmed by it. One great scientist at the present time said, we should look back towards scientists of the late 1800s, Eddington, James Jean, because they were not confused by the universe. They were not hypnotized by the universe. Since then, we've gotten hypnotized by the universe by studying it too deeply. It doesn't sound like sort of studying a fog bank. By getting into it, you're inside of it. You're in total confusion. You don't know a mountain from a tree, or another being from yourself. So you're never study Maya, Ramakrishna said. Stand off from it and observe it from a distance. Otherwise it's like studying a fog bank from inside. Wait till the sun burns it away, and then you'll know what it is. And what is it, after all? Nothing. Substanceless. It's empty. Empty of what? Substance. Empty of what? The desire to fulfill you. It's empty. If you don't agree, see me later. I'll prove it to you. If you're a rational, practical person. So these particles, see, why are you getting pulled into the show of them? Why are you getting pulled into the show of Maya, of Prakriti? You're the observer, and all of this has come out of you, yet you're getting hypnotized by what came out of you? What sense does that make? You're putting blinders over your own eyes? That's why Vivekananda said, thine only is the hand that drags the rope, that holds the rope that drags thee on. So cease lament, let go thy hold. So you put a rope around your own neck. Unbeknownst to you, your own hand is out there pulling you this way and that way. See? And you're blaming it on nature, on God, on devil, whatever you're conjuring up to put the blame there, you see. But it's your own hand that's holding that rope, pulling you here and there. So cease lament. Let go your hold. Let go the rope. Quit dragging yourself around under the false conception of the mind, and gain that perspective, higher perspective, that open that third eye, see the truth, and the truth shall set you free. So the truth, seeing the truth, is seeing what's not truth first. You see this quote at the bottom? Kapila, the father of the system, says, the 23 evolutes are the non-self. The Purusha alone is the self. This realization eradicates pain permanently and totally. So you want to know how to get rid of pain? Study the building blocks of the universe. And by that we don't just mean physical particles. Study everything inside too. All vibratory spheres. Study them all. In other words, the kingdoms of heaven within you. Put them under the microscope of your own inspection. Come to know them, and then let them go. And they can't harm you anymore, see. You're only in fear and in doubt because you don't know them yet. Make acquaintance with your non-self, see. And that's how you're going to know yourself. People think they can jump from the bottom step to the highest step just like that. Well, there might be some good high jumpers that could do that, but they will never know the steps in between, what they consisted of. They'll only know just the absolute reality and earth, and they won't know the kingdoms of heaven that lead up inside. They won't know the cosmology. But Kapila has graciously put forth these 23 evolutes. Look at how he calls them evolutes. Some of them are origins, some of them are evolutes. Prakritis and Vikritis. And so he's ordered them very nicely right on down. And you see they're just simple things: hearing, feeling, seeing, tasting, smelling, and air, earth, fire, water, and ether. They're quintuplications. This is called Panchakarna. It's so well known in Indian philosophies, and we don't have any system like it in the West. Panchakarna, fivefold cause of things. We just think 5 elements. Then we think somewhere else, 5 senses. We never put the two together, you see. And then, if we can't put those two together, then how are we going to connect the 5 senses and the 5 elements to the 5 subtle senses and the 5 subtle elements? How are we going to do that if we don't make the connections? Yeah? We have to start thinking, see, I saw a sun last night in my dream. And I swam in water last night in my dream. And I flew as a bird through the air last night in my dream. So there must be subtle senses inside. When these turn off, I still have senses, in other words. Hope we can make sense out of that. And there must be origins to these 5 elements here. Tanmatras, they call. We know nothing about the tanmatras in the West. Where these 5 elements came from. They came from subtle elements, see, and those spilled out from them, just like this, spilled out, and then dissolved back in later. And this is the cycle that really has us hypnotized. See. Problem is, we're hypnotized right here. Just that much of it, you see. We don't know the deeper implications of our non-self, our subtle body and our causal body. We know nothing about that. We only think physical body, physical body. So none of these you are. You're really the Purusha. That's the whole point. He didn't put this together just so we'd be impressed with what he knew. He put it together so he'd make a distinction between sentient self and insentient matter. That's called Viveka. Got Viveka? All of that then reminds us of this first sloka. We looked at the second sloka already yesterday. We saw the meaning of fire. And then we came to this story of the two birds sitting in the same tree. And at that point I had shown you, and we started to look into it, the two trees. As long as we're talking about trees, I realized that I have actually 3 charts on trees. And here's 2 of them. One's the tree of yoga, and the other's the tree of samsara, or maya. And if you put them side by side, which we rarely do, if we do a retreat on yoga, then we look at this tree with the 5 yamas, 5 niyamas, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyan, and samadhi, right? The 8 limbs of yoga. All of you should be pretty well acquainted with that by now because we've gone through it so much. So we usually do that on a yoga retreat, but if we're looking into this strange, perplexing, inscrutable thing called Maya, then we usually put a chart like this up, courtesy of the Viveka Chudamani, with its wonderful, fully realized author, Shankara. And that is pretty much a depiction of samsara. So we have to decide here, which tree are we going to climb? Sri Ramakrishna made an interesting statement. He said, a man approaches a tree, wonderful fruit clusters on the top. He puts his foot on the first branch and he's already thinking, I have that fruit in hand. But he hasn't even climbed the other limbs yet, you see. He's going to have to get up the trunk and get to the lower limbs and get to the middle limbs, and then that fruit is very high, you see. So when he gets to those upper limbs and it starts to get a little windy and the limbs get a little thin, he's all of a sudden in a precarious position and he can't reach them yet, you see. So it means that we're also, how they say around food, we have big eyes but small stomachs, right? So spiritually speaking, we have big eyes but small stomachs. We think we can grab the highest fruit early on. And you know us Westerners, right? Everyone knows the rap on the Westerners. They like to get things right away. They don't like to work for them. They want quick fixes, you see, of everything. Food, pleasure. So Vivekananda called us straw on fire. Americans are like straw on fire. They're very interested early on, and then they fizzle out. As a teacher, that leaves you high and dry. People who are interested right away, and then they just fizzle, you see. They can't hold an interest in the most important subject of their life. They want to fall back to sleep, back into Maya. Don't go back to sleep is the name of a song. Rabindranath Tagore wrote a song, it says, Vigil, he called it. He's the Pulitzer Prize winner, right? So he came here to the West, you see, and wrote this song, this poem that went, I stayed awake on vigil all night, waiting for you to knock at my door, O Lord. I'm paraphrasing. And I waited and waited on vigil, waiting for that knock on the door so I could finally see the Lord. See? And then I just dozed for about 2 or 3 minutes, and that's when you knocked. So when I woke up out of that doze, I not only didn't know that he had knocked, but I might have had doubt. Did he knock or did he not knock? Oh, I fell asleep. Did he knock while I was asleep? So not only do you have the problem of never seeing the Lord, you have a problem of confusion. On top of that, see, you've got yourself in a double jeopardy there. So that's Maya creeping in to the cracks in our consciousness during our sleep state, you see, in our dreaming state. And waking state might as well be dreaming state. You think people are walking around wide awake all the time? There's another song that sings, unfortunately, "O soul, O mind, you think you're wide awake, but you're walking around with eyes open, but you're dreaming." See? And Ramana Maharshi came along in the 1900s and said, this state is dream number 1, and your dreaming state tonight is dream number 2. They're both dreams, and they both resemble each other. That's the A and U of Om again. The A and U of Om. There it is, the center of everything, you see. So, waking up out of samsara by practicing yoga. Isn't that what we started today saying? There's yoga as union, natural union, and then there's yoga as practice, and then there's just a physical yoga, which is a passing phase. So if you want to wake up, get off the tree of samsara and start climbing the tree of yoga, then you're going to have to look into these prerequisite practices. You must be ahimsa, non-violent in thought, word, and deed. You must be truthful in thought, word, and deed. You must not covet the goods of other beings and other nations. Can you handle that yet? The very first 3 requisites of yoga, are you able to do that? See, we're talking about right perspective here, right? You went to a seer, you wanted to know what truth is, he said, here's the requisites. If you want to know truth, then this is what you need to do. So already, aren't you going against about 95% of your fellow man's tendencies? Are they nonviolent? Are they not coveting the goods of others, of other nations? Are they truthful? Right away, and it's just the very first few limbs, you see, of yoga, you're having to test yourself. But at least you're finding out what it needs, what it requires to be a yogi or a yogini, to be a seeker or a knower of truth. At least you're finding that out. So you measure yourself up against it. Come to find out that I'm going to have to increase my devotion for God. I'm going to have to study the scriptures. I'm going to have to practice some austerities to get rid of my veils of Maya, you see, that have gathered over my eyes. I'm going to have to seek out and find contentment, santosha. Peace of mind, the peace that passes all understanding, that's yet to come. I must at least get contentment. And guess what? When I get contentment, I find out that happiness wasn't all it was chalked up to be. Why? Because it was attended by sorrow, of course. So you found something called contentment, and you felt, this feels good. Samo, dhammo, upariti, titiksha. See, I have inner peace, self-control, contentment, forbearance. Now I've got the 4 of the 6 jewels of Vedanta. So the 6 jewels of Vedanta are pretty much like these 10 yamas and niyamas of yoga, which again are pretty much like the Eightfold Path of Buddhism. Patanjali, Vedavyas, and Buddha. If you put 3 great beings like that together in their systems, what wouldn't you know? You see, what could stop you along your spiritual search? These are the authorities. You've gone to a seer. These are the greatest of the seers. Do we have seers in the West? Or do we just have scientists, savants, scholars? Where is the seer? We don't believe in him. We crucify him if he comes. See? Poison him. Anything to keep this mirage of the world going. See? Anything to keep Maya in full bloom. Anything to believe in name and form when it's just shifting sand. Anything to keep my death grasp on the atomic particle. And anything to escape or skirt freedom. We talk big about freedom. Vivekananda said, nowhere, anywhere in the world, as in America, have I heard such big talk and such little realization. They talk about God as a healing power. They talk about God as a way to open pathways to society. No, none of them know what God really is. Poor dears, he said, with their grey little studies of lives. But he wasn't into just coming and criticizing us. He was into coming and giving us everything he had. For the full 39 years he was with us, poured wisdom out to us in straight from the mother source, see, unstintingly, even if we were straw and fire. He often would say things like, I don't really want you, I don't want your son, I want your grandson. In other words, if you can just wake up a little bit and pass it on to your children will get a hold of it. They'll do something with it in their youth, you see. Not when they're old and it's too late to do anything with it. And then their children will pass on to their children. You'll start finding some yogic practitioners coming forth. Someone with some qualification, see. And that's what we're waiting for in America. We have great souls like Lex Hickson, our own founder, who passed now. Is he going to reincarnate in America, and what's he going to do with all his knowledge, you see? Waiting for these beings to come around. So Vivekananda, he said, I've planted a seed. He didn't have a lot of disciples. He had very few in the West. And most of the ones in the West were from England that really stuck with him. But he wasn't daunted by that. They said, well, what happens when somebody comes to the path, hears your teaching, and then leaves? Well, all that happened was I planted a seed there, and that will bear fruit in the future. Sri Ramakrishna had a beautiful story for that. There's this big old mansion. Family after family lives in it, right? In lineages, you see, passing it on from hand to hand. A tree drops a seed. The seed rolls down the roof of the house and lodges itself in the corner of the gutter. You see the rain gutter there. Stays there for generations. Pretty soon the house gets so old and dilapidated that people vacate it. You see, nobody goes to it anymore. And sometime in the distant future, then that house starts to collapse. First that corner falls down, that seed pops out of that cornice and onto the soil, and it rains, and then it sprouts. It stayed up there for generations without getting watered, without having soil. And then all of a sudden its time was there, you see. So auspicious timing is a very beautiful thing. It's like grace in our tradition. It's better not to wait on grace. When you hear this truth, you should be off and running. Try to realize it through your own self-effort. Grace will come. But if you're waiting for Christ for 2,000 years, that's a long time to wait. How many lifetimes is that? See, 80, say 100, if you could live so long, into 2,000, you see. 20 lifetimes is that, or something like that? That's a lot of lifetimes to wait for grace to come. See. A lot of centuries, lots of years, lots of breaths, lots of dreams, lots of suffering. Do I really want to be reborn and go to high school again? That one got you. I feel the same way. Do I really want to chance a roulette wheel of parents again? Which ones will I get this time? A friend of mine up in Portland said, my bottom line, if I don't get enlightenment in this lifetime, is to have dharmic parents next lifetime. If I cannot get enlightened this lifetime, Babaji, then I want to have dharmic parents next lifetime. I won't accept anything less than that. So if he can get dharmic parents, somebody who will teach him these things which you're learning in SRV over the last 20 years, because this is our 20th anniversary, and it's the 150th anniversary of Swamiji. If you can get these things early on when you're a young man or a young woman, then you will be fine. Ramakrishna used to look at his devotees, who are mostly young boys, See? And he would say, if they know who they are, who I am, and what the world is, they'll be fine. Well, what is the world? Maya, empty, to be renounced. Who are they? The Atman. Who am I? The avatar of the age. If those three things they know, then I don't have to do anything. I can go help other people. See, they'll be fine. Till you come to know these few things in life, and you're launched. See, might as well christen yourself. You're a huge ship sailing into the ocean of consciousness, you see. So, in the meantime, if you've fallen into an ocean of samsara, that's the ocean of suffering, then you can't get to the ocean of ananda, the ocean of bliss. The ocean of bliss is where you should be all the time. Peaceful, blissful, full of wisdom, naturally balanced, impervious to what the world sends at you. Those whom the world cannot afflict, and who do not afflict the world, those I call my most perfect devotees. Who said that? Those who do not afflict the world, and whom the world do not afflict, cannot afflict, those I call the perfect devotees. Krishna in the Gita. So he wants you not to afflict the world, ahimsa, asteya. See, don't covet things, don't be violent, don't afflict the world, and then be impervious to the inflictions that the world sends to you. To sort of sound like slap, turn the other cheek, you see. So whatever the world sends at you, be impervious. If you do happen to fall into the ocean of samsara, then it would probably be good to know its constituents, and in the remaining 5 minutes we can look at them. There you see, tree of samsara. He says, taking this world as the tree, this world is the tree, the seed of this fruit is tamas, laziness, heaviness. Creation is a heavy thing. The 5 elements and 5 senses are heavy, they're slow. The brain, slow, right? Hard to charge it up, right? As my father used to do. You're flagging, you see. You always have to charge up that brain. It's slow, it's dull. Thank God it's not you. See? I already said that, right? You're not the mind, you're not the body, you're not the senses. So bring that charge, that buoyancy back to your mind. The self is the body. The idea of the self as the body is the root. And there's the roots. Body as the self. You're thinking the body is your true nature, so that's the root of samsara. Attachment is the twig. And actions are the soil and water. And the pranic life forces are the trunk. See, it's all depicted here for you. The different senses are the various branches. Senses are its various branches. Objects of the senses are its flowers. Pain is the fruit. Human soul is the bird that lives on this tree and eats the fruits of suffering, born of multifarious activities. Where did we just read that? Sloka 6, Shvetashvatara Upanishad. There are 2 birds of beautiful plumage. See? One lives in the tree of yoga, as it were. One lives in the tree of samsara. Guess what? This is the same tree. But the soul who's ignorant is looking at it as if it were samsara. And the soul that's illumined is looking at it as if it were yoga. Self-same tree. It says that here. They live in this self-same tree. One is looking at it askew, one is looking at it properly. The human soul is the bird that lives on this tree and eats the fruits of suffering, born of multifarious activities. So might be that you want to be more careful about your activities, your karmas. Karma just doesn't mean some cause and effect thing or some hell you have to pay. It actually just means the way to do action properly. See, it is action, karma. And karma will take time and space and movement. See? So to be a master of karma is going to be very difficult. People are trying to master that karma and having a hard time, but there's the first rule of karma yoga: do not get attached to the fruits. Can you do that? Can you do your work without any attachment to fruit? That means whether the work goes awry or whether the work goes well, whether my work overflow with full fruition or with none, I have to be the same person. Because work cannot define my soul. So if something goes wrong in the world, I'm the same person. If something goes right in the world, I'm the same person. So I can't take praise and blame to myself. They're not in the self. They're in the mind. So, heed then no more how karma lives and goes. Its task is done. How body lives and goes. Its task is done. Let karma float it down. Let one put garlands on, another kick this frame. Say not. No praise or no praise or praised, or blame or blamed. No praise or blame can be where praise or praised and blame or blamed are one. Thus, be thou calm. So, no matter which way your work goes, you just have the right to the work. You don't have the right to the fruits. Well, guess what? It means you don't have the right to the good fruits, but saving grace is you don't have to take responsibility for the bad fruits either. That's not you. See? You did the work to the best of your ability. As the vibrations of work go out, they're going to hit different people, different situations, and they're going to turn bitter or sweet or a admixture, as the case may be. You have nothing to do with that, no reaction. So, the tree of samsara, as we said yesterday, is like the fire of suffering, isn't it? Fire of suffering starts to light a fire under you. You see, so you get moving, and then pretty soon it becomes the fire of aspiration. You want off the tree of samsara, or you want to start seeing things how they really are, and quit posing things as you would see them falsely. So false perception has to go by the wayside. In those two paragraphs, we pretty much went through the whole tree of samsara in a fell swoop. After the break, we'll look at a little bit more at the tree of yoga, that tree we want to really be on, the yoga of practice and realization. So please take 10 or 15 minutes break here. We'll come back afterwards for a short second half to this second class in San Francisco. Namaste, aloha. Anytime. Welcome back to our San Francisco chapter of SRV Associations, S. Sharda, R. Ramakrishna, V. Vivekananda. Together it spells serve. And that's what we're trying to do today and at other days during our retreats, our classes, our pujas, and in all ways trying to serve humanity. Our bylaws say that we are to bring spiritual education into Western firmament so that we have other ways of thinking besides just 7-day creation theory or 4,320,000,000 evolutionary theory. Vedanta poses some very interesting juxtapositions to those perspectives and quite enlightening and illuminating, and people are getting attracted to it since Vivekananda brought it here in 1893. And the generations of Swamis after him kept it alive, so now we have some decent pillars set down in the Western soil so that we can spend some of our time contemplating these truths, these axioms, these maxims, these principles, as I said in the first half, that are around not just physical, emotional, psychic, intellectual, mental, psychological, even just philosophical levels, but on a purely spiritual level. And it's nice to hear something about spirituality. If it's not there, then we tend to see the coming and going of nations and races in and out of existence, only leaving behind a few artworks or a few architectures or things like that on the physical level, but never really coming to know of that subtle substratum, underlying substratum or foundation of the spirit, which is talked about sort of cryptically in various circles. But in the Indian scriptures, especially the Upanishads, which we're studying today, in no uncertain terms, brings it out, not only brings it out for our consideration, but insists that it is the underlying foundation of everything. The substratum, the Atman, they call it. And in that regard, many teachings are given as if it's not enough or satisfying enough just to hear it, shruti, but then you're going to have to yukti, analyze it, and then nidijasana, realize it, and then bring it full circle into life. And that would be the fourfold movement of Vedanta in the most ideal way, how Vivekananda would have liked to see it, and hopes he will see it in humanity. So in his 150th anniversary year here, I even have a t-shirt that somebody sent me that has that on it, and Vivekananda on the back is sayings. So people, even here in San Francisco, we saw posters on him down in the Haight and so forth in this year. So a kind of revival about the wonder of a great soul like that comes to us, that whose wisdom can and whose light can even penetrate into the thick materialistic Western consciousness and its views and begin to percolate there and offer up some, as I was just saying, some other ways of considering, if not outright affirmation. Much of this based upon the suffering that's in samsara, as we just looked at, or it's in Maya. People get tired of rounds of birth and death in suffering. It doesn't have many redeeming qualities unless it's used to engender yearning. If you went to Ramakrishna and you were in India, in Calcutta in the 1800s, and he was alive, and you would come and ask him, what is the way? And he'd say, develop yearning for God is the way. And that can be, of course, in Bengali language, that would have a certain connotation that maybe we miss some of in English, but the idea being that there, and if you want to put it back in the Western context, beings like Einstein and others put it in that way. You know, man has to have free time in order to find what's really important. So you kind of yearn for that peace that passes all understanding. It's hard not to go back to religion to have some association with spirit, because religion should be, at its best, a vehicle by which we can realize true spirituality. If it falls from its pinnacle, then it begins to lead us astray, fundamentalism and worse. And then we don't have any light in the world that's not the light of a physical sun, or the light of astronomy, or the light of quantum physics. So religion needs to take true recourse to this deep wisdom principle, this mother wisdom whom we were worshipping last night, even in a puja. See? Invoking her to permeate us and to visit us in our thinking consciousness, come right into our very bodies and animate us. Or better put, realize that she is the animating power in everything. It's hard to put your finger on her because she's faster than the fastest, slower than the slowest, higher than the highest, and lower than the lowest. She outstrips all that runs. That's mother intelligence. So even the greatest of thinkers can't put their finger on her. So the minute they think an ingenious thought, and then they go to look where its source was, she's gone. She just comes and leaves that really quickly, like lightning is gone. That's why we just read here, you are the lightning, you are the thundercloud, you are the seasons. Even such things as the season, there's one season there, pretty much.